I've been fortunate for most of my life to have been able to have mentors who have directed me in very clear and transformative ways. Not very many, but those that I've had have been very powerful for me. And in a sense, in thinking about getting here today, and it's a long journey that's kind of come back to me here, I thought back about those relationships, and I think it's important. It's certainly important for me to consider the path that I've taken for my adult life. And I think it began, and I'm not going to dwell on this in any length, but it began when I was in high school, and I was in a suburban high school in Ohio in a very non-diverse community, where as a restless teenager I had a civics professor who decided that I needed to get out of the classroom and do something else, and he worked out an arrangement, which I don't know today if this could happen, but worked out an arrangement. So I spent basically one semester of my junior year at high school working for a mayoral campaign at a time when a man named Carl Stokes, who was an African American running for mayor of the city of Cleveland, first African American to become mayor of a large city, was running this campaign. I had expressed some interest in politics, and I basically ended up spending 4 months organizing young people while I was in high school in a situation which was racially charged, which pointed out issues of class and economic injustice to me. I went door to door in the sort of the white areas of Cleveland. I had a gun pulled on me at one point, which for a 16-year-old was definitely a wake-up call. I had my tires slashed. I had a real awakening and understanding, beginning to get an understanding, as you can at 16, about the country that we lived in and the direction in which this country possibly was going. And so I am very grateful. I keep touching in every now and then to that opportunity that was given to me, because it really sort of set a course. Fast forward a little bit, I went to my undergraduate college was at Brandeis University, just outside of Boston. I entered there in 1968, which was at the height of the anti-war politics, and partially, it's not surprising, I suppose, because of the background. I jumped in pretty far into that work, although looking ahead a little bit, for me, the lawyer, part of the work I did was civil disobedience, but part of it was draft counseling, where I basically had an office and a bunch of books, and I counseled people that were likely to get drafted in ways in which they might avoid that situation if that's something that they wanted to avoid. And so I spent a lot of time doing that work. But there was something about that process that the anti-war politics, and some of you, I'm sure, were engaged as well, was it was very effective in many ways, but it was very aggressive. And I think put each participant at risk of really losing a focus, losing a sense of empathy and compassion and equanimity. And so that struggle, the concern that I had, I think, that I was losing something, led me to sort of mentor number two. And I had a professor who himself had been very involved in the political side, that had also begun meditating and studying yoga, and figured out at a time at the university where you could get away with a lot, to bring in the study of basic sitting practice and yoga into the classroom, inviting in teachers and giving meditation instruction and that sort of thing. And it was that professor, who today is actually a Zen Buddhist teacher named Larry Rosenberg, another of the long lineage of Jewish Zen Buddhist teachers that I've met in my life, said to actually a few of us, myself and a couple of friends, one of whom was my roommate Marty Janowitz, who some of you know is a longtime board member here as well, as we told him we were planning a trip to Europe to kind of see what the political world was like in Europe, he said, you might want to check out this meditation center in Scotland. There's this Tibetan that we've heard a lot about. Wrote a letter to them, they wrote back, they said, you're welcome to come, but we've opened this center in Vermont, and if you'd like to check that out first, you could come up and check it out. Unbeknownst to me at the time, that became the sort of earth-shaking, earth-moving event of my life, that little exchange of letters with this secretary at the Samyeling Meditation Center. And as a result, in the spring of 1970, traveled up to Vermont. Trungpa Rinpoche, the Naropa founder, was not there yet. He was still working on getting his immigration status settled, but his students were there. This funky, falling down farmhouse that someone had purchased, but there was something about it that became so magnetic and so important in a way that I couldn't quite describe to myself at the time, that I kind of canceled the Europe trip, cashed in the ticket, Icelandic Air, I still remember. Got back about $400, which the secretary up there at Karma Chilling Meditation Center said, that's just what it would cost for you to live here this summer. I learned from her. Gave the $400 and spent the summer basically half the time being the gardener and half the time being the cook. And early on in that process, greeting Rinpoche when he arrived from Canada, when his immigration came through, and basically made a relationship, the most intense, deepest, profound relationship, I think, of my life. Became a student at that point, and then for 17 years, managed both from work that I did very directly with him and work that I did for the organizations and work that I did outside to continue to rely on that relationship as the sort of most fundamental kind of touchstone of my life.